Stop. We're having a serious show today. There'll be no smiling, joking around, laughing, and having fun, right? It's all business. So the great Jillian A. Brown is coming to us from...
I
It's impossible. It's coming to us from Race Rock Preserve. Is it a preserve? What is it called?
It's Race Rock's Ecological Marine Reserve. It's a mouthful. Yeah.
So Jillian is a new pain in the rear end to me. I think I told everybody, and I'll go through the story again, but there's a good friend of ours, this Ryan Phillips, very motivational guy. He was having people send in videos of things that they've done for others. He asked me to send him the video. So I start paying more attention to his site, and up pops this pain in the rear end, Miss Smiley here. And she had a great story. I didn't know what the background story was. Talked about how, well, you tell the story. You tell it better than I do. Tell about the woman who hired you to do the photography. So Jill is in photography business, Jillian A. Brown Photography. She was hired by a woman. And tell us what the woman said to you at the end of the shoot.
So this lovely woman booked for headshots in Squamish, British Columbia, did our photo shoot, had great conversation, lovely, older than me lady, and went to her vehicle to pay me. And as she's getting her checkbook out, she turns to me and says, "I've been meaning to tell you something. I read your article in the Canadian Women's Foundation, and I too was in an abusive relationship at that time. And I saw this young woman who had all the strength and courage to leave everything behind for safety. And here I was, quite a bit older, not having that strength. And you gave me the courage to pack up my things in Ontario, leave that abusive relationship, and drive all the way to British Columbia and book this photo shoot to tell you." And tears running down. She's come to every presentation within that area. She came and supported for many, many years. Her and I are in close touch. She's moved now. She's got a lovely man in her life. I love her to death. She's the sweetest. Yeah, but I still don't think she realizes how much her sharing that and her actions have impacted the lives of so many others through her sharing that story with me, because it was that story that completely shifted what I knew I was supposed to be doing with my life and my photography and my writing and my presentations, rather than it being just solely about kind of the adventure side and the fun side, sharing the reality of it. Because even if she's the only person I ever know that I've helped in some way, that'll be enough. But who knows, maybe I'm helping somebody else by continuing to share.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing when you first realize, you're doing the stuff you're doing, and all of a sudden you realize, well, I really made a difference in somebody's life. It's like inspires you to do more, doesn't it? Yeah. That's cool. Yeah,
that's what I tell everyone. Like, if you know that you've helped one person, why stop? Because you can help one more.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like at first it's kind of like, really, I can make a difference in somebody's life that way, right? Like you don't realize you can do that, but then it all falls together. It's like, God, I hate admitting this, but this you and I have so much in common. I sent you remember I sent you that Spotify music, that song, "Be a Light"?
Oh yeah.
That's one of my favorite. I listen to that all the time, and I send it to you thinking I'm giving you some miracle song, and you listen to it.
Yeah, it's on my daily playlist.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, for sure. God. And "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles. That's that's the one that I only know one line from it, but I just sing that all the time when it's raining on all of my expeditions. I just immediately start singing "Here Comes the Sun."
That's pretty cool. So we'll go through the story over and over, but just so a brief synopsis for Jill. She was in a relationship, an abusive relationship for many years, and tried to fix it, felt like it was her fault, all these different things, and finally left. Part of the abuse was some controlling all the money, so she was able to save up about $300 in cash. Left and bought a tent from a woman on the side of the road for $60. Have I got this right so far?
Yeah.
And lived with her and her dog, and her lived in the tent for 7 months. And Jill's very open about talking this stuff, so you jump in if I'm saying something wrong, but she got to a point where she contemplated suicide, went to a therapist. The therapist, if anything, taught her that she didn't need a therapist, she was going to fix herself. And It's really, it's interesting since you and I talk about this stuff. It seems like it's much more of a topic now. Maybe it's because I talk about it more, but the guys I have on my shows, we even had that show we have with my ex-teammates on Thursdays. We got into it a little bit. There's a goaltender, that's Robin Leonard, plays with Vegas, and he's been diagnosed with some mental health issues and been made, and sometimes says some things publicly. And some of our older guys that just lived in those kind of the dark ages there where we didn't ever talk about mental health issues. Like, what's he talking about? But to their credit, in fact, one of them, Ron Gressner, is a very good friend of mine, and he did some research on his own and is going to discuss it again tomorrow on our show, but realized that he was just not informed enough. He just didn't understand the stuff. He'd never lived through it himself. So that was interesting.
That's one nice thing about like the young generation, because it's not necessarily being taught in school. I wouldn't go that far, but it's a lot more talked about within like in programs on TV and things like that it's helping the older generation who already have that buildup of energy because they've been taught that generation. You hold it all in. Even mine's kind of that last generation of really holding in emotions. And then you get into the millennial and all of that side of things where people they're a little bit too emotional.
Yeah. It's funny for me, like I've learned that it's okay for me to do stuff, but it's still weird sometimes when I do it. It shouldn't be, but it's still like that. Like, oh God, no, I'm not going to tell you. Like, I've got plantar fasciitis or whatever you call it to my foot. I hate even talking about it because I feel like I'm a baby there, but it's.
You're a hockey player. What are you doing? Crying about some little foot thing. Come on, suck it up, Tom.
Oh, I know. Totally.
And I cut my finger off and I still flipped a tire. Suck up that.
I know you did. Yes, okay, let's go over the reasons why we don't like Jill. There are a few reasons why we don't like Jill. So I think I'm the strongest man on the internet, and so I see a picture of her on her Instagram page where she's pushing a tire uphill, a 400-pound tire, flipping it uphill with chains on her back. So you did it on purpose. Like we've discussed this before. I said, like someday I'm going to meet Tom Laidlaw and I want to embarrass Tom Laidlaw. That's what
I was in training for the day.
Yeah.
Secretly, I saw you on Survivor, and like I have to one up that guy.
Survivor. You should go on Survivor. I'm telling you. Like, you think you wouldn't be able to? First of all, you'd handle the outdoor stuff, no problem. That'd be easy for you. But it's not all like you can play your game. Like, you don't have to be like the lying, conniving like they are.
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah. I mean, if I got asked, I'd say yes. I think it'd be fun, for sure. Yeah. I don't really like go sourcing that kind of stuff out so much, but maybe I would one day. But yeah, if they called me up and were like, hey, you want to come on Survivor? I wouldn't say no, but I don't really say no to anything. So
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that way, Jill. You have to apply.
What? Okay? I figured you knew some people. This is like why you're in my life, Tom.
To do things for you?
Because you know people, obviously.
All right. We have a few things to work
on. Nothing to do with the smile.
Stop. We said we were going to smile. Okay, that's it.
I know. You're supposed to be serious.
Here's a good question. So we call this gentleman Mr. Heart Attack because he eats cheese and sausages at 2:00 in the morning. So we tell him that he's just going to, might as well just, blend up with cheese and sausage, put it in a syringe, drive to the hospital, hop up in the gurney, and hook himself up with all the equipment, and then shoot that syringe into his veins so he can clog his arteries, and then just have a heart attack right there. And it's all set. Skip all the. Does Jill have any thoughts on the Petito Laundrie alleged abusive relationship? You follow
so that? You'll have to fill me in because I don't know what that is.
So there's a famous case here. A husband, they're assuming killed his wife. Just found out today they found her body 3 weeks ago, and they found out today she was strangled. And
okay, so this is the young woman, the blonde. Yeah. They were out hiking in a canyon.
Yep.
Okay, so I did see that. I just have no idea what their names are. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess, you would assume, and again, you can't really be sure of this, but if he did murder her, that wasn't the only time he was violent with her, I'm assuming, right? You would assume that there was
normally, you'd think, especially strangulation, like there's a few things that are, when it comes to abuse, that are because they're more primal and related to animal instinct, there are a lot more red flags because you're touching into something that is instinctually within us. Whereas, so biting and strangulation are two in particular that are very animalistic. So if those are going on kind of behind the scene, if those are part of the abuse, rather than just like punching, people are always so like, oh, that you got hit, like thinking that's the worst thing. But that's not an animal instinct reaction, whereas biting and strangulation are connected to that. So that's like where somebody is going full seeing red, uncontrollable, animalistic. So the fact that she was strangled, my guess is that probably there was some form of that prior to, but once it gets to that point, then it's usually, you can guarantee that it's probably not going to stop ever, the abuse kind of thing. Which is terrifying.
Yeah, you know what I never asked you? So when you went to the therapist the first time, when you contemplated suicide, at that point, you really didn't know about like what PTD really was or symptoms or all this stuff. Like you learned a lot from that point forward, correct?
Yeah, I didn't learn anything from the therapist other than they told me, it sounds like you have PTSD, not what PTSD was or what those letters even stood for, which is the big reason why I never went back. Sorry.
Just so you know, Jill is on this.
Radio.
Jill's up on the house is getting worked on that she normally does the show from. So she's up in the lighthouse. Just a little view of the lighthouse.
Yeah. So I'm up. Yeah. So I have a radio. When I'm not in the house, the VH, there's a VH radio in the house streaming, so I can hear the fishermen, or I can tune into any station. And it's a safety thing to hear if there's a mayday call or if somebody's around the reserve and sees a sea lion entangled, for example. So I have a radio when I'm up here also in case I get hurt and need to radio. So I just turned it off. But you can listen to like the fishermen and they'll be bantering back and forth and stuff like that. It's pretty funny.
How long have you been there now?
A month.
You've been there a month, and you're leaving Friday, which is 2 days from now.
Yeah.
Today's Wednesday.
It is 2 days from now. It is not tomorrow.
You know, the thing is, I made a mistake, and Jill just jumps all over me. I forgot today was Wednesday and not Thursday. So one day off by 1 day. Oh my God.
So that's the and there was a humpback this morning. I came up here for sunrise and looked out, and there was a humpback rolling around in the kelp bed just to the east, like super close by, right at sunrise. And it was one of those bucket list things I've wanted while I'm here, is to see and photograph a whale or an orca at sunrise with that glow of the light and the color and the kind of silhouette look. And it's like 3 days away, and here's this famous two-spot is the whale that was rolling around, this big male. So I saw his like fins and his tail. Oh, it was amazing. For like 20 minutes, he just rolled around. It was awesome. We were talking about something before we digressed there.
About you learning stuff.
So I went back to that therapist one more time, I think a couple weeks later. She got a book for me, her counselor, it might've been a counselor. But one of them gave me a workbook called When Love Hurts. And it has stats and percentage, like how many women are abused and all that stuff, which was hugely eye-opening, which was kind of the parts that I actually read about the book. But then it's a workbook, so it's writing out the things that had been done to you and kind of reliving things. And I still haven't finished it. It took me so long to just kind of pick away at it. And that's where I learned about that primal instinct, and then started to do more research through reading in that workbook and learning like 4 out of 5 women will be in or are in an abusive or have experienced an abusive relationship, like just crazy numbers. And that was a big wake-up call because I had never met anyone. And here I was like late 20s at that point, being like, I've never met anybody in an abusive relationship. And yet the stats are 4 out of 5. Okay, well, the majority of women I know then have been in one, and they just haven't shared or done anything, just like I hadn't at that time.
4 out of 5 women have been in an abusive relationship.
Have been in or are in or will experience.
Wow.
It's a
And again, when you say abusive, it isn't necessarily just physically abusive either. It can be emotionally abusive, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Which is way worse. Like that the mental, emotional side is so much worse than the physical. Physical is easy. Like as soon as it's done, essentially, it's over with. Like you reminisce and stuff. Like I have little things that I don't like done to me because of what was done to me. But it's definitely the like psychological side that sticks. Like every day I deal with like looking in the mirror, like I struggle with self-confidence or like thought process because of that side.
Hold on a sec. You struggle with self-confidence?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I've had issues with like eating and all sorts of stuff. I don't talk about it. But because I love food and nobody would ever know. But yeah, I've had eating disorder issues throughout that whole relationship. And then, it's like always on my mind. It's a big part of with the expeditions. I can convince myself to eat more and better and I can easily convince without having to think about it too much, if that makes sense. To eat because I know I have to when I'm out on an expedition or I won't survive it. Whereas at home, it's a little bit different because it's like, well, I can just eat like a carrot and I can just eat another carrot later or whatever it is kind of thing. I'm not exerting myself like I am on an expedition where I need to have that.
I want to stay on that topic, but this is important for my ego right now. Okay. So let's stay on that topic.
Okay.
Well, hold on. That's not the one. Hold on. I was talking about you, Tom. You are well liked too. Thank you, Barry. I needed that.
Yeah, you're all right.
I'm incredible. What are you talking about?
Glorious.
Glorious.
We don't want that ego to go up anymore. Ego. You know what ego stands for?
Extraordinarily good one.
No way. No, ego stands for edging God out. And what does God stand for? Great outdoors.
Oh, okay. But I am the voice of God, right? You remember that?
Pardon me?
I am the voice of God from like, I was made the voice of God from the Alzheimer's March. So I think that moniker's going to stick. I've just decided that I will continue to be the voice of God.
Okay. Yeah. I could see your voice being like God-like. If
Thank
God
you.
was a guy,
thank you.
Obviously God's a female.
Did you just kind of give me a compliment there?
I really half-assed one. Yeah.
Wow. You did. You gave me a compliment. I'm gonna tape that part of the show, like and I'll retape it and just play that segment over and over.
Oh yeah.
I have what Jill said. I had the voice of God.
If God was a guy. Yeah.
If God was a guy, yeah. Are you religious? We never talked about that. Are you religious? No.
No, but I love learning about different religions, like hearing people's perspectives and views, and I definitely I talk to trees, and I believe in like spirits and energy, and that like when we die, there's that energy left behind that we can feel. I believe in that kind of thing, but I don't care what anybody else is. My family is super diverse when it comes to religious views, and I don't care what anybody else is. Do whatever you want. It doesn't affect me. I love listening to the stories, and
I think the same way. I don't know why people get so bent out of shape of what other people believe, right? Whether it's about vaccinations or religion or whatever it is. Let somebody believe what you want.
Well, come on. Like, the thing that makes no sense is that if there's one thing that I've learned from every single religion is that only their God can judge. And yet everybody that's religious are like the most judging people you'll ever meet about their religion being the right religion. And if you're not that, then you're wrong in some way. You're literally going against everything. The one thing that I know everybody learns within their religion, Bible or whatever the Quran or whatever they're called. You're being the biggest hypocrite right now. You're not practicing your religion if you're judging others' religion.
There'll be no more smiling on this show. Okay, we made a rule at the start of the show. You missed it. That's it. Serious business. This is not a show for fun.
Serious.
Okay? We're talking religion.
Oh, very. Very.
All right. So what do? You take, obviously you take the big boat. They come with a big boat, and like they have a ceremony when you leave on Friday, 2 days from now. There's some kind of parting ceremony for you and the Sea Lions.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna assume. So I've already now for a month been a part of the biggest bachelor party on the planet.
Right.
So I don't know if they'll do anything bigger than that for me.
Right. They should play like the national anthem, play the Canadian national anthem.
I got my first day here, the flag, because we are actually run by the Canadian Coast Guard.
Right.
The flag was all ripped and needed to be changed. So I actually have a souvenir flag from here, which is pretty awesome.
Nice.
And I got a whale waving at me today. So I feel like that's been a pretty good send off. Yeah, I bet you anything there'll be some like orca or something. That's how it usually works for me. Somehow animals come around when I'm around. So yeah, I don't know other than that though.
Are you calling me an animal or something? What is that all about?
If you ever chat with my parents, they'll tell you that when Jill's around, the animals, like wildlife, just like are attracted.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. So how'd you get this job anyways?
So a couple years, just before COVID, I guess. So a couple of years ago now, I did some instructing and photography and presentations at a place called Pearson College. And Pearson College actually has the guardianship for Racer Ox. They manage it and run the Eco Guardian and the program and everything here. So at that time, I met Greg, my supervisor, and they actually took me out on the boat a couple times when I was there to go look for whales. Terrible weather each time, so we ended up just coming out here, and they gave me a little tour. I got to meet the Eco Guardians at that time, and then parted ways and didn't hear anything, but I guess Greg had kept following along on all of my escapades and adventures. And took a shot in the dark and wrote a comment on a post during the summer. I think about routine and, there's a whale out there right now. Sorry, that was the attention span.
Stay with us.
Focus. Sorry, the boat's also leaving, so that's something that I do have to kind of pay attention to. I'll have to turn it. So anyways, he commented saying they needed somebody and if I would ever be interested. And apparently he was kind of joking in the comment, but within 5 seconds I wrote back being like, I'm in, when?
That's cool. So is there always somebody there on the island?
There always has to be somebody here just because of so much technology that has to be operational. Environment Canada has their weather stations here, so there has to be somebody making sure that the solar batteries are charged so that the weather stations are getting power, as well as that the foghorn and the lighthouse are working. There's a whole bunch of things that are very little that are daily tasks, but if one of them goes wrong, then it's a pretty big deal. So there has to be somebody here all the time. Yeah.
Do most people just stay for a month at a time?
They go, yeah. Normally it's something like that. This past little while, they've had people staying for just a week because they have it. The past couple years, they've just started to.
If you have to keep that on, keep it on.
They've just started to get some returning Eco Guardians that they're finding are actually putting in that work ethic and trying to maintain it, and not just maintain, but to make it better here, because it really had been let go for like 10 years.
Right.
So it was just horrible, like just a disaster, everything. And so the past couple of years, Greg in particular took over supervisor, and he's been putting so much effort in. So right now we're getting new windows because they were all leaking, new hot water tanks, like a whole bunch of work is being done this week to upgrade the place so that it is actually maintained livable a little bit better and lasts longer. Yeah.
So during the winter, it must get a little nasty out there. I'm assuming you've had some nasty weather right now.
I've had a couple days. Yesterday was the coldest, and it was pretty crappy. And then last week there was one really, really crazy windy day. It shifted from the east to the west really suddenly and was blowing like 40 knots, which is like 70 kilometers an hour. But other than that, this October has been insanely amazing out here. I was so excited for the time of year that I was supposed to be out here, for it to be that changing weather where it would probably be stormy most of the time and cold. That's what I thought, and I love that kind of weather. And it makes me not feel bad if I'm inside doing some sort of computer work or anything. But yeah, it's been absolutely gorgeous out. Like the guys are all working in t-shirts today. Yeah.
It's all because you met me. That's why. It's all because it's my responsibility. Thank you.
But it's hot now.
Right. I fixed the weather for you. I fixed the weather. That's right.
Thanks. Yeah. Hey, you wrote me a good morning message, and right after I saw that was the humpback rolling around in the kelp bed. So lucky charm.
That's right. Definitely.
Did you have a lucky charm when you played hockey? Like
no.
Not washing your socks or something?
Well, there's a lot, you do things, you get in the habit, like you put your right skate on first, or, your like routine of getting everything ready, what time you get ready, taping your sticks, all that kind of stuff. So, everybody's they say it's not a superstition, but they do the same thing all the time. Yeah. It's the whole preparation for the game. You try to prepare for a game the same way, whether it's an exhibition game at the start of the year or a Stanley Cup final game, you do the same preparation. We got to prepare differently for the final game. And you don't. If you change your routine, it's the process you have with life, right? It's like you get up early in the morning, it's working out. And we talked about this before. It's like you start changing your routine, and listen, you've got to adapt. But for the most part, if it's working, keep going.
For sure, yeah. It's not about doing the same necessarily thing. It's different for that where you can put your skates on the same order kind of thing. But in life, you have to adapt. But having that same routine of you can still get up at 3 a.m. no matter where you are in the world. Yeah. That's the adaptation. Your walk where you're walking at 3 a.m. is going to be different.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did I ever tell you that I used to like doing practical jokes? Did I ever tell you all this stuff?
So, I think you mentioned that. Yeah. Well, because you were you told me about the golf tournament.
Yeah.
Unclick everybody's
There's actually a funny video. I'll send you a video. There's a YouTube video they did of me in LA. With videos, and Barry Shelley brings up the story. So speaking of routines, so we had this one guy in our team, Nick Fertillo, was really good. He had all these practical jokes. He would put baby powder in the hair dryers. So when guys want to dry their hair. So I thought it'd be really funny to set it all up before the game. And we had a coach, an assistant coach, and he had this routine. He was the eye in the sky. So he would work out, shower, put his contacts in, and then he'd go dry his hair, and he'd go upstairs and do what he had to do. But I forgot about that. I put the baby powder in the hair dryer, but there's like 5 hair dryers. I only put it in one hair dryer. So we're just about to step on the ice. Like we're about to leave the locker room to go out in the ice at Madison Square Garden and for the game. And he goes to dry his hair. He picks up the hair dryer with the baby powder in it. And he gets contacts in and everything, just sprays all over his face and suit. And like the game's going to start in 2 minutes. And he was not too happy with Mr. Tom Laidlaw at that point. So the guys thought it was hilarious. So it was classic. And I would love to tell you that I really did it on purpose to try to get him. I didn't. I tried to get the guys after the game. But it was classic.
That's pretty funny.
It was funny.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. We had a lot of guys, but it was that was the fun part about playing because we had guys that are good practical jokers, and you wanted to be careful because if a guy had a routine, you didn't want to ruin the routine and ruin it. But at the same time, if you had a good sense of humor, you could do things. So we had one guy, Bernie Nichols, a great player, and he would take his 2 sticks and he would put them by the door. Part of this routine. Nobody else had their sticks there. He'd put them by the door. So, of course, I had to come by. I would always come by, and he had black sticks. So I'd come by with black tape, and I'd tape them together. So I do it so you couldn't see it though. And then he'd go on the ice to play. He's got a sticks taped together. So it took him a long time to figure. I was pretty happy with that one. I got away with that one for a while, so I was pretty happy.
That's pretty funny.
Yes.
I would have definitely joined in on that.
I bet you would.
I'm a troublemaker, but I never messed with. I was all serious when it came to sports. I would joke around and all that, but I was pretty pretty serious with my teams, and I coached a ton. So I was a good time when it came to like practices, goofing around with all the kids and the teams that I coached. But they knew that I was pretty pretty on it. Yeah. Oh yeah. I lost my excuse my language, but I lost my shit a couple times during games when some of my players either screwed up, like did something bad where like they hurt another player or something, or if a ref like did a bad call.
Oh yeah, you lose your mind? Oh, you get a little mad?
And so my dad was my soccer coach from the age of like 10 to he just is retiring from coaching soccer. My same team, which I'm not on anymore because I live in British Columbia, he's still coaching the same group of girls who are now women. And this is his last season. He just announced because his grandkids are now old enough that he wants to start coaching them.
That's cool.
That's 22, 23 years he's coached the same group of girls.
That's pretty cool. That's amazing. So the head of the Jill Brown fan club wants to know, did you ever play lacrosse?
I didn't. There's probably good reason that I never got into it because I probably would have really gone into it because I was a really, really aggressive goalkeeper in soccer. And I was an aggressive player, but like I threw my body around. So lacrosse, I probably would have been really, really good at, but I already had my sports, and I think my parents didn't want me doing more physical stuff. And I was really prone to injuries because I went really, really hard at the sports, as well as not. When I was in sports, I went pretty hard, so I always had some sort of injury.
And Barry, by the way, I did play lacrosse. Yeah, you can ask me too. Yeah, I played box lacrosse. I was actually a better lacrosse player. So in Canada they take the ice out of the hockey rink, so you just play inside the hockey rink. Yeah. And that was good. But I got to the point I was like 15 years old or whatever, and there's no pro lacrosse. So not like the NHL. So made the choice. But thanks for asking, Barry.
Get back into it. You should get back into it. Now there's like lacrosse is aired on TV and everything. There's make your comeback.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Actually, I have my old wooden stick. Hold on, I'll get it. That's an old wooden lacrosse stick. That was not authentic.
Oh, nice.
That's old time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. My parents kept that. I'm glad they did. Yeah.
You have to move back to Canada, though. It's our national sport.
I know it is. Yes, a lot of people don't know that. That's correct.
I know. Everybody assumes that it's hockey.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. That is true. So, you know what I want to talk about too? Your photography business. So, did you go to school for learn photography or something? Or?
I did, but I was into photography before that. I studied fine arts, like drawing and sculpting. Since I was really, really young, my parents figured out that I had a knack for it and that I loved it. So I was in programs for that since I was really young. And then at 10 years old, I got my first camera. It was a little plastic Crayola camera. And our family was doing a road trip to or from Toronto to Winnipeg. So that north shore of Lake Superior, which is just spectacular. So I took tons and tons of photos, and not a single one of them worked. They were all just like black or blank. And I swore from that day at 10 years old that I would never let that happen again. So as soon as I could start learning in a darkroom, at 12 years old, I was in a darkroom learning how to process film, how to make prints. And it was my passion since I was 12 at that point.
Cool.
So then I catered all of my schooling towards photography and art. So I went to a specific high school that had an incredible art program and an amazing art teacher who became a mentor and really good friend of mine. We still stay in touch. My whole high school in particular was completely focused on on art and photography. And then I studied fine arts for a little bit in university, and then I got into a private photography program in Manitoba at a place called Prairie View School of Photography. So I went to that intensive program.
Have you got a lot of this stuff posted on your Instagram, or is it on your website?
Instagram's the best place to go. It's basically an online portfolio that's really easy to update every single day, or as much as you want as a photographer, rather than a website that takes a lot more time and intricacy.
Okay,
that's what I use nowadays.
I'm going to give you a compliment now, okay? So don't get a big.
You're going to give me a compliment?
Yeah. Yes. So don't get a big head, okay? All right. So, you ready? And I told you this before. You're a very good writer too. Like when you post those things and you get you write like a whole long thing. That's pretty good.
Thank you. Yeah. I really like doing it. And the presentation side of things, I love sharing that. I've written some articles. And,
I told you. I don't know why you fight me on this, but I told you need to write a book.
I know. I get that all daily. People write me that. Do you have a book out yet? I want your book. When you write it, send it my way. One day, I'm as much as I go through a lot of waves with that sort of inspiration and kind of struggling to find words a lot of the time. So I slowly work on getting a paragraph for just with one photo each day. Try my best.
My books just getting done with finishing up all the pictures and that. Some would argue some of it is pictures, but the writer was fantastic. I had a ghostwriter with me, and he was really good in. I think I told you this where, I'd tell a story about something that happened to me, and then he'd really get into, okay, why, Tom? Why did you act like that? What's the past history? So, looking back, it really surprised me. Because I'm the same way. I never thought I'd be writing a book, and then all of a sudden I'm writing it. I'm reading it. I'm going, oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think my first book would be basically kind of like Instagram, where it would be one photo on each page with a paragraph written. I think that would be my first book, just to start and get photos out there with a little bit of script with each photo. Right. And then slowly work on a life book.
Because that's what you
to me, my life, I'm I don't think about my life as super exciting and needing a book. But
well, I'm the same way. As people are me write a book, and that wasn't that exciting. I grew up on a farm, all that kind of stuff. But it's more to me. I think you're in the same boat. I think your life is more. It's first of all, it's inspirational, but it's also lessons for people too. That's how I look, and that's what my book really evolved into. It really wasn't the stories about my life; it's the lessons that I learned and passed on to other people. It's like you said before, realizing that you can make a difference in somebody's life. Before that first time happens, you really didn't think you were doing that, right? And I was the same way, and then all of a sudden you realize you're helping other people.
Yeah. I think part of it is that there's that fear of I'd have to go into so much detail. I want to go into so much detail as well, but I would have to ban my family from being allowed to read it. Just because I wouldn't want, I haven't shared a lot of in detail. And I've told my family when I went and told them that I was in an abusive relationship, a year afterwards, and I did this road trip and reconnected with each of them. I told each of them that if they felt they needed to know details, they just had to ask. But I wasn't just going to spill my beans, spill about it. And my brother, when I sat down and told him that, he needed to know. He asked for details, so he knows things that were done to me and things that I went through. But my parents didn't ask, and my grandparents, they don't know those things, and that's something that definitely keeps my mouth shut in a lot of ways. I'd love to say some stuff and be open about certain things, but I don't need, and my family doesn't need that pain. Right. The big thing is I've already dealt with all of those stresses and that weight and what I've been through. I've dealt with it. That's why I have my routine and all that. But they don't. Right. It would be giving them that sort of trauma, if you want to word it that way. And they don't have those tools necessary. And do they really need to know that and add that stress? No, they have their own things going on already.
So is there times like when you and I are talking that it does add stress to you when you have to talk about it? Or
not at all. No, not at all. It doesn't add stress. I am completely comfortable talking about any of it. I, especially like this, I'll share and answer any question. When I get uncomfortable, it's seeing the pain in some way that it's causing to the other person. So I'll have a really bad habit of not looking at the other person when I'm sharing things that I've been through that I know is going to cause emotion to them, or if it's making me emotional in some way. I don't want them to feel that or see that, so I'll look away. So it's not me trying to be rude, it's just me trying to still share without making it harder on each person, I guess. Right. It's weird. I get called out on it all the time by people. They're like, just look at me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not meaning not to. It's just like a natural instinct for me not to look when I'm sharing something that makes me kind of cry or I know causes pain to another person.
Right. I hope I say this in the right way to you. This is partly another compliment I'm giving you, but like you go out of your way still to almost to your own expense to care about other people more, right? And it's great. But I'm trying to be a therapist, but you got to take care of yourself too, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm out here for a month. The past 2 years have been running a camp, and that's somebody else's camp, who was my partner, who my brother called me out on it right at the beginning. Like, Jill, you're doing the same thing that you do all the time. You're putting somebody else's passion ahead of all of yours, and you're giving all of you in every single way. And then you're dealing with first responders and veterans and all of that. And I wouldn't change it. I love all of them to death. They're my family now. But you're taking all of their weight. And as much as you're giving them your positivity, you're still taking all of their, whatever they're giving off, whether it be the negative or the positive. And then the dealing with somebody else and their passion kind of thing. Definitely. Yeah. I that's my number one fault is that I do that.
I don't want to paint it as a fault. I don't necessarily, it's a great quality to have. It's just that, I'm the same way. People have always since I started doing all this True Grit Life stuff and, helping people, everybody's like, Tom, you got to take care of yourself. And I was like, I'm fine. What are you talking about? But there has been times where you need to take some time to yourself. And
helping others heals. That's a huge tool for anyone out there that's struggling. Go volunteer at a soup kitchen, or just volunteer, or just buy somebody, pay for their groceries, or give somebody an orange that's on the street. Like, doing something for somebody else is the quickest and easiest way to feel happiness and warmth within you. But when you're doing it like a lifestyle, and you're not just seeing happiness all the time, you're hearing pain from other people. You definitely you have to have your tools before you can start doing that, because otherwise you're just going to be in the shitter. You have to practice them all the time, or you're going to be in the shitter. And then you have to take those breaks and you have to pay attention. And I put that aside for 2 years, like I'm really guilty of. That's why I'm out here. And now I can focus on all that. And I have to keep reminding myself every day, like, do what Jill needs to do. Do what, when I was paddling the Mississippi River and I ran into the 3 veterans that were paddling when I ended up solo. And they're like, this is Jill's trip. They just kept telling me, or this is Matt's trip. This is Ricky's trip. If you want to go paddle that little chute over there, you go paddle it. We'll meet you on the other side. We'll be there for you. We'll meet up to camp. We're always here for you. But if you want to go that way, or if you want to slow down or speed up, we'll meet up with you. You go do it. This is Jill's trip. And I tell them, I hear their voices all the time still. I'm like, I have to remind myself of that.
Yeah, it is tough though, right? I mean, you get caught in that thing where you feel like you can help so many people. It is tough though. That's good.
I love seeing the people that I care about succeed, right? So when somebody asks me to be a part of their goal, I'm hugely honored, because now they're trusting me with their hopes and dreams, essentially, to help them achieve it. Which
that's
is
a good point. That's a good point, right? When somebody like wants to include you in their life or their dreams, it is a huge honor. It's like, yeah, I'm in, right? It's hard to say no.
Right? Yeah. And then it becomes kind of yours, but in such a different way, because you're there like more so because you're seeing that your help to their goal and dreams is making them so happy, and it's actually doing something that you're like, well, that's better than me going off and doing whatever kind of thing. But you have to have that balance, which I'm really guilty of not.
It is amazing, right? When you say to somebody, listen, I'm just there for you. Like, I'm going to help you do your thing. Like sometimes, I think sometimes people look at you and think like, that never happened to me before. Like, people don't do that a lot, right? But man, that's pretty powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why you're smiling. You're not supposed to smile.
No smiling show. We're gonna have a serious conversation. Fooling around.
Yeah.
All right. So what?
I feel like.
So Ira, remember the guy that last show told us that he went up 4 flights of stairs and had to stop and get pizza?
Yeah. Okay. Let's find Tom a wife. There you go.
Very good.
I could ask a question here with that. Like, you've been married before, so do you feel like you were guilty of giving yourself in that relationship to their hopes and dreams and their goals, or was it the opposite, or was there a fine balance? Or was that part of like why you're now looking for a wife?
No, I'm not looking. I was looking for a wife for me. I was looking. Well, 2 different situations, right? So the first time I got married was when I was playing in the National Hockey League. So when you're doing that, you're so focused on your career. It's really a very selfish life. I mean, I've talked to a lot of my former teammates about it, and we acknowledge it. It's just we were so wrapped up in our careers, just not even being aware of other decisions in our life that we make. To her credit, I had my 2 sons with my first ex-wife, so I'll always be thankful for that. We never should have been together. We're just 2 entirely different people. We're getting into some certain details here. Public details. So the second one.
You don't have to answer.
No, that's fine. Second one, she wanted to have a child. I'd had my 2 sons, and I don't know how much detail.
And you didn't want to have more kids.
Well, I made it so that I made a medical decision so that I couldn't have more kids. So she wanted to go off, and she went off on her own, not a child.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
Now I'm stuck sitting on a show with you. You're Oh, okay. So I was trying to find me a wife.
There you go. Hey, Ira, I'm single too. What about me? As in, like, find me a husband. That's.
Oh, God. What is this? Is this turned into a dating show or what?
Yeah, right? I'm like, well, where's Bachelor number 2?
I know where Barry's going to go. I know what Barry's going to say.
Yeah. I'm waiting. I see you looking over towards your screen. I'm waiting for one of these guys to chime in with something.
Yeah, he's going. Yeah, no comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So
now you're blushing. I like it.
Blush? What are you talking about? That's why you're in the dark there. You knew you were going to blush.
Yeah, I'm not meaning to. It's just so bright. I'm backlit no matter where I am in a lighthouse. So there's nothing I can do about it.
That's true. So, you friended Ira? Oh God, Joe, we need to talk. You shouldn't have friended Ira.
I think he added me. There was a few from the rink group, I think, that added me on there. Barry and I have chatted a couple times.
Barry's a good man. Barry's a good man. I think deep down inside, Ira is a good man too. I just think he's a troubled individual. He's
I don't know. I assume you're joking, but also not.
I'm joking. We have a lot of fun. The people that have joined in, both the guys we have on the show on Thursday, and I was going to say I should have you on the show on Thursday. I don't know if maybe good or bad.
Yeah. I think it'd probably be entertaining. That last one, I wanted to chime in a couple times.
Yeah,
but.
I have to think that through.
Yeah.
Okay, so in 2 days you're leaving. It's gonna be a big ceremony. Maybe we should do a show, like a. My wife just walked by, and Barry's wife walked by. So we should do a show on Thursday. What time? Or on Friday? What time do you leave on Friday?
I don't know. It's I wouldn't be able to say too much on that because we have crews. Crews will be coming. I think 2 different crews, and then the other Eco Guardian is coming. So Greg, my supervisor, will be coming and going, and I'm not really sure. He doesn't want me to leave either. He's like, I want to keep you forever. So I don't know what time he's gonna try to delay it as long as possible. I know it. So I'm not sure. And then
he's just saying that to you because he feels bad for you. He doesn't really. He wants you to go. He doesn't want you to stay.
Yeah. Maybe. And then I gotta drive quite a ways up island right away and catch a ferry and then get to Squamish. I probably won't make it there Friday. I'll probably camp out in my vehicle Friday up by the ferry and then get in Saturday morning really early because I gotta get home and I have a couple of new friends moving into my place, so I have to go get it all ready and organized and try to get life sorted and readjust. It's always harder to go from being on expedition back into or out here on the island by yourself. It's a lot harder to go from that into civilization and back to the real world than it is to go from the real world out to an expedition or everything. Everybody thinks that it's the expedition part that's really hard mentally, but it's totally the transition. If you've been on it and been out, it's the transition back into civilization and society. It's way harder.
Really? Why? Because you're just so used to being out by yourself or wherever it is out in the expedition?
Yeah, but for one, you get a routine, a different routine. So if you're on expedition, it's setting up the tent each night or taking it down each morning and then making your breakfast and workout and then you're paddling or doing whatever it may be. And you're pretty focused on that. And your senses aren't generally in overdrive because you're out. For me, on my expeditions, I'm out in the wilderness somewhere. Or out here where it's just me and sea lions. So I don't have any sounds of other people, any sirens, no smells other than the sea lions. So you go back to civilization and there's cars and people everywhere and sights, sounds, smells, everything. You're totally bombarded with it. Even though it's not like I live somewhere crazy busy or big, but it's really overwhelming. And then, and then because you're out kind of alone and you don't really think about that side of kind of safety side of people and that. So you were living in a tent where people are like, you must have been terrified. You're just in a tent. But it's really, I get back home and I'm in a house and I have more fear because there's people around and people could somebody could break in or whatever it is, and you can hear people. And it's just a different thing. That's me though.
I can see that.
Yeah, and then when you're not on an expedition, when you're back home, you don't have that goal. When you're on an expedition, you're very hyper focused on a specific objective. A specific objective. Sorry, I have to take this one because this is my supervisor.
Go ahead.
Hi, Greg.
So just so everybody knows, Jill is...
I am, but I'm about to come down. I saw that you left. Okay.
All right, Jill's got to go. You got to go?
Can you hear me better now?
So Jill is, just so everybody knows, Jill is on Race Rock. She's up in the, they got people working on the house. She is up in the lighthouse, and she's actually working, so she's taking time off to be on our show.
It's probably more likely my phone. Yeah.
During the intermission, Tommy, how excited are you for Rangers hockey tonight? Oh, I'm very excited. So, CK is asking how excited are you for Ranger hockey. Very excited. It's always exciting when the season gets going again. But the Rangers are a great young hockey team, and whenever a team like that makes some changes and they needed to make some changes to help improve the team, it really jumpstarts the team. I mean, it's always been the thought that this was a lengthy process to rebuild, but when they make the changes they did, like they're kind of changing the character of the team, it's always pretty exciting to see what happens, especially tonight, right? So the whole Tom Wilson stuff. Will there be a lot of violence tonight? I'm sure with Virgo out the new coach and Reeves have been around there together in Vegas, and they both want to send a message that, listen, they're not going to let the team get pushed around, but they're there to win. That's the most important thing. Now, at the same time, they're not going to let anything happen like they did last year with Panarin and Bushnevich. But again, the focus will be a win. Now, like I was talking on the show with Kevin Allen today too, it depends on what the score becomes. If there's a runaway one way or the other, or somebody there's some cheap shots, I expect some real physical hard play. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be fights right after that. There'll always be a time for Reeves and Wilson. They've gone before when Reeves was in Vegas. So it's not like they don't know each other. It's not like it's Reeves has already shown that he can throw around Tom Wilson.
I have everything, so I can easily.
So I always want to know how many fights today.
Put him on and
Man, it's hard to tell. Somebody gets up late in the game that's 6-1 or something like that for either one of the teams, then I think you're going to see a lot of fights. But as long as the game's close and it's all clean hitting and the referee just calling all the penalties that need to be called, but just clean hits, there may not be a whole lot of fights. But I don't know. There's been times where you think that there's been a brawl one game, the next game the two teams play against each other, and you think it's going to be this melee, and nothing happens. And the opposite holds true sometimes as well. So we'll see. All right. So CK thinks it's going to be a pain game.
I definitely, because I have it my routine, I totally was thinking
all right, you know what? We've gone long in this show anyway.
A structure when I'm home, and I'm like, I'll do all of I'll do everything.
Okay, so I just kind of stir the pot.
Because I'm out running around, take advantage of being able to be outdoors helping.
That's the party guard. Yes, that is true.
But yeah, I will.
Especially at the buffet, I made sure that he got second and third helpings. I did watch, and Barry don't know if I watched the game last night. I did watch the game. I mean, ESPN, I'm a little bit prejudiced, obviously, because Brian Boucher did the call.
Okay, I will for sure. Yes, I heard. He's doing the ones he's
and so I'm prejudiced towards him. I think he does a fantastic job, but I think ESPN does a great job of broadcasting games. So, Okay, I can't leave. Barry's telling me I can't leave until Joe gets back on, so I'll delay as long as possible here, just for Barry.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, bye.
Right, you can probably hear everything that I was just saying.
No, I was talking during the whole time anyway, so I should
have muted that.
No, it's fine. I talked during the whole time, so they couldn't hear. They were asking me questions about hockey and all that.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You got to work. We're going.
Yeah. One of the, I hate when I feel like I haven't done. I'm a give everything to a job, whether it's working at Canadian Tire or something I'm super passionate about. If you accept that job, then you do it to the best of your abilities. And my supervisor is you haven't been doing this one thing. I just got a call from one of the other guys saying he's in a panic because you haven't done it. And I'm like, oh, well, I was not aware that I was supposed to be doing it. So now I my heart's I feel like shit.
You'll get that. You'll get it. Oh, Ira gave you a compliment. Should I put it up on the screen?
What's that?
Ira
gave me a compliment.
Yeah, should I put it up on the screen? I don't want to.
Okay.
I know. She's soft. All right. She's hot. See, I told you. Ira's got problems. Ira's got the issue.
I was gonna guess guess like cute. That's the one that I always get.
Shoot.
I'll take it. Thanks, Ira.
No. I don't see it. I don't don't know.
I don't see it either. I'm gonna have to get going from here though.
Okay.
I gotta get down the lighthouse and make.
Yeah, we've been on an hour. That's like talk too much. All right.
Yeah.
So this will be the last show that we've done from Race Rock. We'll continue the show when she gets back to Squamish. We're stuck with her. All right. Good seeing you.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Yeah, nice to see you too. Thanks for the
Bye.
smile, Tom.